Hey everybody, welcome to today's Active Self-Protection Extra lesson. I want to talk to you today in light of some recent events that have made huge rounds on social media about why, we saw a couple out of St. Louis that there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of disagreement about what they did in standing outside of their property in the face of protesters and waving guns around and stuff like that. The husband had a long gun. He had an AR today. I have a home defense shotgun, my Beretta 1301 Tactical Iridius and Langdon Tactical Edition. But whether it's an AR or whatever long gun or a handgun, I'm going to show that as well. I don't want to talk about the legalities of stuff today, but I want to talk about from a perspective of the use of firearms, why I should encourage you and why I do encourage you to understand how to correctly use them, why a sling is still important, and some of those mistakes, how we can prevent them and not escalate situations. Today's video is brought to you thanks to MagTech Ammunition, the official ammunition supplier for all range activities of active self-protection. Okay, so if you go watch the video, I don't want to talk about the legalities of stuff today, okay? Because I think there's some significant discussions on that, where the protesters on private property or public property. We don't know what the couple saw in terms of what did they, what were they looking at? Were people yelling threats at them? Were those folks armed and waving weapons around at them and those kinds of things? We probably will never get to see that. But there were a couple things that from a firearms training perspective, I want to address and I really want you to think about. Number one of the things that we saw here, and I'm going to show you, this is my 1301 and it is completely unloaded. We have nothing in the chamber, nothing in the tube. I'm still going to treat it with some respect, but I have a safe direction here. And so one of the things that we saw the husband doing is, okay, they come out and you see him kind of cradling his AR-15 like this. Okay, so he has an old school A2 AR-15. Okay, awesome. And you see him kind of holding it like this, and I'm left-handed, so I'm doing that from a left-handed perspective, and he's kind of doing this. Well, the problem that I have right here is this is not port arms. Even if he's holding it like this is not port arms, okay? So a port arms hold is way up like this, and the reason that we do port arms like this is because it keeps our muzzle high and from muzzling somebody. And of course, the problem here is that I want to be cautious how much I do this because I don't want to muzzle somebody unnecessarily, but as I turn, now my muzzle's pointed in a direction that could certainly and easily point at somebody who doesn't need a firearm pointed at him. Now, certainly I would expect if I'm going out to face an angry mob, I'm going to do so with my firearm loaded and ready to go. AR, pattern rifle is going to have a full magazine, chamber full safety on. So what I would recommend instead is at the very least, you want to hold this gun in a high port, in a port arms like this. But of course, the problem is you're going to stand out there for some time and this is going to get tiring, which is why he goes to something like this, because it's a little easier to maintain for a significant amount of time. No, friends, this is why I believe a home defense gun needs a sling. You guys have seen me do a review on this Wilderness Tactical Just Enough Stretch sling. And this is how it works. I sling this over myself, and now this gun stays right where I want it. It is pointed at the ground just off my feet because it's a properly built, properly sized 2-point sling. And so it is in complete control. Now you can see today, I'm even out here doing this video like you might have if you were, sitting at your dinner table and all of a sudden you got to defend the homestead against a mob. And I'm just wearing a pair of shorts, right? And put on a polo shirt, to make this video. So this is very much how you might do. But again, I've got a gun on me and very visible. So if you're like the visible presence of that gun saved the day, okay, fine. I still have the visible presence of the gun, but a couple things. Number one, I have both hands available so I can talk. I can hold my spouse if I need to. I can do other things. I can have my phone out and be talking on it. Of course, I'd rather have earbuds to do that. But at any rate, my hands aren't full of gun, number one. And number two, I can turn and see what's going on this way and see what's going on that way. And I don't have to worry about pointing a gun in an unsafe direction because it always stays in that place that my sling happened to put it. Now, we've talked about this before, but if I needed to somehow move this sling to my back, it's not hard to do. All I'm going to do is swim out, swim in, take that muzzle, put it behind me. Okay, fine. Now again, I can put this gun. Now if I had to climb a ladder, reach down and get a hold of somebody, do something that was intensive right in front of me, I can do that, okay? So same thing when it comes time to get, I come here, swim under, back together. That's an administrative position. Okay, fine. Now I know what somebody's gonna say. They're gonna say, but John, it's not as fast as that. You have a problem here because you can't get to the gun very quickly. I actually don't think that's the case with, again, a properly built 2-point sling, because all I have to do is see, oh, oh, look, there's a problem right here. Again, verifying an unloaded gun. But what I'm gonna do is show you from this position, because this is my safe direction right here. I'm gonna show you that it's not as hard as you think, that all I have to do is grab a hold of this gun, and I'm just using a just enough stretch sling, so this is helpful for this. And as the gun comes up, I can take the safety off and get a shot off. Just that quick. So it doesn't take me really any more time. So again, I'm gonna just verify chamber empty, magazine empty, lift gate empty. Okay, fine. Now, if I'm gonna holster this gun right here and it's not in my hands, I am going to leave the safety on. This gun's built for me as a left-hander. So again, all that takes very quickly. Grab the gun, get it up, click. That's all it takes. That's all it takes for me to get a good cheek weld and get a shot off if I need to. So it's just as fast. Now, if I swim out and I'm holding this like our dude was, and again, I would be doing that with the safety on. So let's just say, again, I'm sitting here kind of slung like this, and I decide go, I'm not any faster. So I would actually argue even that was probably just a little bit slower because I had to mount the gun a little bit more determinedly. So I think if you're gonna have a long gun, this makes a sling a really good idea. 2-point sling, and I really love this Wilderness just enough stretch sling. And again, I've talked about that before, so I'm not gonna belabor the point. My point is, if you're gonna have a long gun for home defense, and this is a controversial topic, and a lot of my friends and a lot of professional trainers say, you know, you don't really need a sling on a long gun for home defense because you can just set it down. But I think that this video out of St. Louis shows us that I think having a sling on your home defense gun doesn't really hurt much, and I think can really help in these kinds of situations where then not only can I talk with my hands, hey man, we don't want any problems, but I need you to get away from here or whatever, where I still have the visual deterrent of the gun. And again, the biggest thing is it keeps you from pointing the gun around where you don't want to point a gun, because as a good, sane, sober, moral person, you are responsible to follow the rules of firearm safety all the time, even when adrenaline is high and you're doing crazy things. And rule number one is always keep firearms pointed in a safe direction. When I am holding the gun like this, very easy to point that gun in an unsafe direction, and a direction that's not the direction of least consequence. Okay, now let's talk about handguns for a minute here. This particular one, if you look, has a barrel block in it. It's an HK P30 long boy that I haven't yet had a chance to put a red dot on. And you can see I've got a barrel block in it that renders this an inoperable, inert training gun. So I couldn't load this gun, it will not fire. But it lets me have a real trigger, which is kind of nice. Okay, fine. Well, a couple of the big problems that I saw, probably the ones that made me cringe the hardest, was the lady, the wife, who was out there and was pointing this gun around. Now, the reason that I showed you that this is an inert training tool is because I don't want to be accused of being careless with the muzzle. I particularly put this in here so that you guys can see this is a gun that could not be loaded and fired, okay? So it's just like a blue gun from that perspective. And she's pointing this gun all over at people. In fact, looks like she points it at her husband a couple times. And I'm like, dear, put that down. Not only that, but she was putting her finger on the trigger while she was doing so and waving this gun around. Now again, I don't know what she saw, and I don't know what prompted her to do that. I will say that as a firearms trainer, it squicked me out every single time. And what I teach my students instead, and what I want you to focus on and work on instead, is recognize that you always must keep a firearm pointed in a safe direction. That is rule number one. Rule number two, we always keep our finger off the trigger until we have made the decision to fire and our muzzle is on the target. Those two things must both be done before I can put my finger on the trigger and not be violating the rules of firearm safety. And you must follow the rules of firearm safety all the time. So how do we do that in this kind of environment? Well, I get it. Okay, she's grabbed a gun, maybe out of the same gun safe that her husband grabbed a gun, and she grabbed the handgun when he grabbed the long gun. And okay, maybe she's, you know, in a pair of shorts or something. She doesn't have a holster on her person. Of course, I'd love it for you to have a holster, but I'm not going to argue for you that you got to have a battle belt that you can put on at any given moment and all that stuff. Let's just say she grabbed the gun that was in her hand because she's wondering and worrying that bad things are coming. Okay, fine. There's a couple of ways that we can do this, and I want you to practice these in your dry fire with a safe gun. First and foremost and biggest one is I want you to work on a low ready position. Now, here's the reason that I want a low ready position is that if I get this gun up on somebody like this, you will notice that if I'm close to the camera here, just so you can see the fact that my eyes, I can't see anything below the gun really. So if I'm pointing this gun at somebody, I can't see their hands. If their hands are below, you know, the middle of their chest, I can't see their waist. And we always say eyes, hands, waist is the scan that we do. If instead I take that gun and I depress it below anybody that I might need to not immediately shoot. Now, of course, If I need to immediately shoot somebody and I come out with a gun and there's an imminent deadly threat right in front of me, well then I just point the gun at them, press the trigger, and go to work. But if I don't have that, I don't point guns at people that I'm not ready to shoot right now. And the way that I do that is a low ready position, because what can happen here, and if we go to the range, we can put this on a timer, I've done it many times, is I have this gun down in front of me and I say, get away from me, get away from my stuff. I have a gun, I will use it to defend my life. And then if somebody is a deadly threat, I just bring the gun up, press the trigger when I get the sights that I need. And it's still very fast. I can get from a beep here, if I'm down at a low ready position and I get a beep, I can get up and get a shot in about 0.4, 0.45, which actually isn't a whole lot slower than if my finger is off the trigger like it needs to be and I'm up here and I get a beep, I can get a shot there in about 0.38, 0.4. So we're only talking a couple hundredths of a second difference, but a whole lot safer here to be at a low ready position. Now then, I get it. You go, gosh, John, but they were out there for a long time. This low ready position is going to get very tiring. Yes, but no more tiring than playing this game out here. So if we're starting to get tired, this is where a depressed muzzle position comes in. If we start to say, hey, I'm not in an immediate place, a ready position where I'm ready to shoot somebody right now, but I want to have the gun in hand, or I have to have the gun in hand, then I bring the gun in close and depress the muzzle. Now you will notice this is a little different. I'm not teaching you position Sul here. Position Sul is for people who are wearing body armor that are stacking up to do room entries. That is not what I'm teaching you here. I am teaching you a depressed muzzle. So what I do with a depressed muzzle, put my thumb on the back of the gun, put that thumb to me, and put the muzzle about a foot in front of me. So again, I can sit here like this for a very long time. Do so without pointing the gun at anybody. Have this hand available to go do administrative tasks and not point the gun at myself. Looking around. Now again, from this position, not a ready position, but an administrative position with a gun in my hand. Now you notice that my wrist is all broke over here, but that's okay, because if I see a deadly threat in that vicinity, I simply go through my regular procedure. My hand, my support hand comes to its regular place. My dominant hand comes to its regular place. Now I press out like normal, get my shot. So once again, from here in this administrative muzzle averted position, then I look around and go, oh, there's somebody that needs to be shot, and I put two hands on the gun and I go do my work. Works much better than pointing this gun around. Now I know some folks are going to want to talk about temple index, and I think temple index has its place and it can have a place in this kind of environment, but I think for most people, because it is going to give me a little bit less to hear and there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, generally speaking, I prefer a muzzle averted position when I don't have to worry about people around me and moving around the crowd. If I had the crowd to move around, maybe sometimes a temple index with the gun hooked behind my ear. I take my thumb, hook it behind my ear, and set the gun here so that I can see around it might be the best choice with proper trigger finger discipline. But at any rate, we don't do this thing like this and point the gun around, especially with our finger on the trigger, because that's how people who don't need to get shot get shot. So with the pistol, number one, low ready position, ready. This is a ready. This is, holy cow, that guy might be a deadly threat. Show me your hands, get away from me, back up. I have a gun, I will defend myself. That's what this looks like. I can get up, get a shot on target very, very quickly from there if I need to. Two hands on the gun, sights below my target. I can see everything going on around me, but nobody needs to get shot right this second. They still see the gun's still a visible deterrent. Show me your hands, back up, get away from me, drop the knife, something like that. If I don't have that, but I'm really worried there might be around, I can take a hand off the gun, thumb on the back plate, thumb on me, and look around and see with my muzzle depressed, without muzzling people, without committing safety errors, and not doing these problems. So hear me, if you have a long gun, needs to have a sling on it as a home defense tool. If you're using a handgun instead, learn those low ready and that administrative muzzle depressed position so that you don't end up waving guns around. We could talk about the legal stuff. I'm gonna get the attorneys involved on those, so then that way we have a better discussion from that. But let's talk about the tactical end here. Last thing I do want to talk about, I know a lot of people are talking about, was it cool for them to go outside? Should they have gone outside? Well, I mean, that's a big discussion and maybe a discussion for another day. Kind of looked to me like they had a second floor balcony. I think that might have been the preferred position. Might have been a better spot to be out there on that second floor balcony where you are out of contact yourself, but you have a high ground and you have the ability to see a whole lot better. Maybe that would have been better. Maybe staying inside the house and just calling the cops. Well, of course, the cops are a long way away in this day and age, so that might have been difficult. Is it legal for them to be on their property and in their front yard? Sure it is, 100%. Is it legal for them to be on their property with guns? guns? Sure it is, 100%. Don't have any problems with that. Not wise to be doing some of that gun pointing though, and I really want to talk about that and do the tactical thing and then do the wise thing. Get yourself to the safest place so then that way you're not exposing yourself unnecessarily to danger. That's purely from a tactical perspective and from a defensive thinking through perspective. Specifically and certainly, if in my world, my wife is not highly trained. Now she can pass the FBI qual and she's competent as a firearms carrier. But if I am out defending my property with a rifle, I am telling my wife to barricade herself upstairs and get the other long gun and keep herself up there until bad things are gone and done, and I'll handle the problem. That's pretty much my way of doing things, but you set your boundaries on that as well. So friends, let's be safe. Let's think about the tactical lessons out of this one, and let's make sure that we're better than that and that we are doing the right thing with our guns.